Hey nerds, and welcome back to CW's Flash, Theories and Conspiracies. I'm Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd. This week we have a lot to talk about. First, there's the villain of the week, Tar Pit. Secondly, a new revelations that came out of this episode that may have revealed the identity of Zoom. And finally, a little news about the next dimension or parallel Earth that Flash will be traveling to. So, all of that to say, a lot happened this week, whether you realize it or not. So first, the villain, Tar Pit. Tar Pit is, he's a really fun character, and the Tar Pit that we saw is basically the character. They kind of skipped over what his powers actually are. And really what his powers are is he can animate inanimate objects. And that sounds really strange based on what we saw, but in the comics, the character Joey Manteleone, he works for his brother, who's a drug kingpin, and he ends up in jail, and his brother isn't going to free him, and he finally comes to terms with that. And, you know, getting into meditation and all this, he realizes he can not astral project, but he can push his consciousness into inanimate objects. So he starts doing this and messing around and causing havoc all over town, all the while he's still in prison, so it's not him, right? Well, he finally does this one time and pushes his consciousness in, it gets stuck in tar. And he becomes Tar Pit. He comes out and he becomes this giant walking monstrosity. The thing we saw at the very end of the episode. That actually is really close to how he looked in the comics. Now, what happens is Joey just likes being in the Tar Pit body so much, he forgets about his real body, and that body is permanently in a coma. Now, his powers, he's near invulnerable because you can't really damage the tar. He's got superhuman strength. And like we saw him doing to those other people he was taking revenge on, he can burn people, he can encase them in molten tar, all of that stuff. So, except kind of skipping that whole, projecting his consciousness thing, they were pretty close with the characters. That was a lot of fun. Now, the new theory this week on Zoom. What you have to accept a couple things. One, you have to accept that Zoom is addicted to the speed force. He's addicted to speed and going fast. And we had that exactly paralleled with Wally. Now, I think you can see where I'm going with this, that Wally from Earth 2 is Zoom. Now, this isn't so far-fetched, and it's not just playing on words, because in the New 52 comics, the character of Daniel West, who is Iris West's brother, he is actually Zoom. And he is addicted to the speed force as well. The thing is, he was in an accident, and that's what gave him the ability to tap into the speed force. But the way his power works is he causes things to go back in time. Now, when he gets enough of it, he has discovered that he can go as far back in time as he wants. And so that's why in the comic he is stealing speed force. He's trying to do this so that he can go back in time and try and fix his childhood so he'll have a better life. That's what he thinks he needs to do. That's what he thinks is important. So that's kind of what we see here. It's possible that Earth 2's Wally West wants to fix his past, wants to fix his childhood, and so he's stealing as much speed force as he can in order to do this. Of course, a lot of people are saying Wally West is a lot shorter, he's smaller, he's younger. That doesn't mean they can't be the same thing. In the comics, Daniel West, whenever he absorbs more speed force, he gets more monstrous. He gets larger, he gets more exaggerated features. And that could be exactly what's happened to Earth 2's Wally West and why he looks so evil and monstrous and almost like a speed demon, something like that. So that's kind of where the theory is right now. Check out stuff on Daniel West because I think that's a really, really solid theory about who Zoom could be, and it's worth checking out. Now, the last thing, we had a bit of news this week that it has been finally confirmed that Supergirl and Flash will cross over. Now, these shows are on different networks, so this is kind of a big deal, but the way it's going to work is Flash is going to travel to another dimension. That whole parallel Earths thing that they've opened up on Flash really does allow for a lot of creative storytelling, and that's what's going to allow him to travel to Supergirl's Earth. So this doesn't mean that Supergirl and Superman exist in the Arrow Flash universe, per se, but what it does mean is that they all exist within the multiverse that is the DC live-action media. So The episode is titled World's Finest, and so that's a great shout out to probably a dozen different things that are called World's Finest, including a comic series, specific episodes of the first time Batman and Superman team up. It's called World's Finest. This is what led to the Justice League cartoon. World's Finest is basically DC's super team up title. But one thing I hope is that we are going to get a version of the World's Fastest, that iconic cover of Flash racing Superman. Hopefully we'll get something like that of Flash racing Supergirl. So it's going to be fun. I think it'll be a very fun episode and just neat to see those two interact with their different powers. But that's not for a while. They still have to film it. It's just been announced. So until then, next week, who knows what's going to happen. They go to Earth 2 and try and investigate and take Zoom on there. So we will see what happens. Maybe we will actually get confirmation on if Zoom from Earth 2 is Wally West, or maybe we're just going to get more hints about who he really might be. What do you think of that theory? What did you think of Tar Pit? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to check out my other theories on Agent Carter and Supergirl. So until next week, this has been Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd, and this has been CW's Flash, Theories and Conspiracies.